Right, let's go for it. Yes, and here we are. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Teaching. Tonight we are talking about reading, the science of reading, the best way to teach reading, when are children ready to learn to read. And I'm joined this evening by my gorgeous colleagues, Rianda and Leandria. I'm going to bring them on to say hello to you all. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Here's our dream team.
Hello. How are you?
Good
Nice.
to see
Sorry,
you.
I'm muted. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Hi. Nice to see
we
you,
are
girls. I've
excited.
missed you all today.
Yes,
Yeah.
always so
Good
nice
see you
to
as well.
online for Let's Talk Teaching. So excited
Yes.
to talk about this topic.
Yes.
Yes.
We never
So
have
we've got
enough
some
time. We always
slides,
have so
obviously,
much
to
to
keep
say.
us on track. And we've got a lucky draw at the end. And if you are, we're going to pull names out of the hat at the end. And if you are the lucky teacher, and right at the end, if you are the lucky teacher to still be watching, you will win a consultation with us for you and your school. And we've got a bonus that we'll be sending you as well at the end of the session. So stick with us. This is what we're talking about tonight. The science of reading and cracking the code, because learning to read is literally a science. It's a science to teach and it's a science to learn to read. It is one of the most complex skills that I think children need to acquire. You'll see as we go through our slides, we'll talk about the stages of reading and when children are ready to read. Because often, and I think both Leandri and Rianda, we've taught little ones, and we often have parents coming to us bragging because their children can already read when they come to school, and possibly there's more to it than that. Definitely, there's more to it than that. So we're going to talk about the stages in reading development, and I'm going to hand over to Leandri. So can you talk us through the 6 stages?
Yes, so there's 6 stages. Stage 0 or stage 0 is your pre-reading stage. So this is from 6 months, about 6 months to 6 years. And I see it with my own little baby. She's 8 months now. She loves books. So this stage is developed when stories are read to children by someone who understands and appreciates that a child has an interest in a book and for reading. And then when they grow older and they can start interacting with materials like crayons and papers and books, to encourage that reading process, and to help children participate in the reading process by using things like crayons and papers and circling words and coloring in and doing things like that. So that is your pre-reading phase. That's just basically introduction and getting children comfortable with paper and with books. My own little baby, if you take a book, she can stay for I wanted to say hours, but no, baby stays for hours, for a long time at a book, and she interacts and she touches everything. And it's really an amazing thing to see that they already have an interest. And it's so important to develop that interest in your children as well, in order for them to have an interest in reading when they get older. Then you get your stage number 1. This is your initial reading and writing and decoding. This is when they go to grade 1. So approximately 6 or 7 years old. So during this stage, children learn that there's a relationship between letters and symbols and sounds, between printed and spoken language. So this is where they start learning the alphabet letters and putting them together in order to make words, and then to put meaning to that words. So gaining a little bit of comprehension and vocabulary. And then stage number 2 is your confirmation and fluency. So that starts between the age of 7 years and 8 years. So this is when children can read simple and known stories, and it increases their fluency. So this is where they have gained the skills in grade 1 to put words together into sentences and to make meaning of those sentences. When they go to grade 2 or grade 3, by then they would be able to read short stories on their own and independently and fluently as well. Then we've got stage number 3, reading to learn the new. So this is from age 9 years to 13 years about. In this stage, it is characterized by using reading and to learn new knowledge. So usually when they go to grade 4, it is also this when they start to learn new things and start to write tests and things. So they actually to learn and to gain information and to retain that information in order to give it to give your knowledge in tests and assignments and things. So they literally read to learn new skills. And stage number 4 is synthesizing information and applying it to perspective. So this is your 14 to 17-year-old. So this is your high school students. They should be reading a large variety of reading materials by this stage. And it's characteristics of high school. So it's a lot of reading work. It's a lot of new information. And by high school, we don't really do things with our hands anymore. So everything is based on reading. The reading material becomes more complex, and a child is able to read and to understand the reading material from different aspects or viewpoints. So these are your children with good comprehension with reading. So by this stage, you should understand everything that you're reading, and reading new things and new information should come easy. And then stage number 5, your last one, is critical literacy in work and society. So this is from 18 years and older. This is when they go to university or after school, matric and after school. So you now then read for your professional development and for personal growth. And then you can actually choose what you want to read. So anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got a sign outside our office at the moment at Education Services that says, and if I'm not mistaken, it says, if you don't enjoy reading, it's because you haven't found the right book yet.
Yes.
And I think that is so true, that there's so many people that say, oh, I don't enjoy reading, or you know, I'm not a bookworm. It's literally, I think, because you just haven't found the right things to read. Yeah. I mean, it can be a magazine. It doesn't have to be a book, you know, or a novel. So those are the 6 stages. And I mean, children come to us in all of these stages. I have students in matric who are needing help with reading. Rianda sees children in foundation phase who are struggling to read Afrikaans. It's their second language, for example. So there's all different, you know, issues that come into play in all of these stages. Even as a pre-primary child, you know, at the age of 4 or 5, already the teacher's picking up some issues with perceptual development and not being able to rhyme or not being able to see differences in letters. The visual perception things are not quite there. It's already there, red flags, you know. And so the most important thing, I suppose, is to get intervention quickly and early, because the earlier you get help, the earlier you get support for a child who is struggling with the written word, the easier it is to correct or to put in, you know, remedial techniques and things like that. So I think what's important here in this very, very busy slide is the fact that we expose children to books. We expose them to reading by telling them stories, by reading them stories, but we are not teaching them formally to read until the ages of 6 or 7, because the brain is not ready yet. It's not developed fully yet to have capacity to learn to read. So it's like making a child run before they are able to sit up, you know. It's trying to push the development. It's trying to make the milestone happen earlier. And a milestone is simply a developmental stage of preparation. And so it's fine to expose your children to reading early on and to start them sitting on your lap, reading stories, paging through little books, but not necessarily expecting them to be able to start reading words and writing words. I think that's important.
Yes. I think it's important to also note that in preschool, they will start doing a letter formation, so maybe writing their own and things like that. But that's more recognizing and identifying certain letters and words and names. So it's more memorizing things.
Yeah,
I mean, get
yeah.
parents are saying, "Oh, but my child can read," and then give them a book that they've been reading at home. They would have memorized everything that mom was telling them, and they could tell you the story. But if you give them words, they can't really read it. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think that is a big thing for parents, is not to force children to read before they are ready, because that could actually cause damage and
Yeah. And
so
you shouldn't skip one of the steps. Don't skip.
yes.
Wait, be patient. It doesn't matter when
Yeah.
they'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. So, Leandri, you mentioned about a reading strategy. So what is this national reading strategy that was implemented?
Yeah, so the basically the education department of South Africa, they've got a reading policy, the national reading strategy. It was developed in 2008. I recently read something that they revised it in 2015 and then again in 2021. So this was actually just implemented to ensure that all children would be able to learn how to read and read with comprehension. So it is a strategy. It says that you should at least have 10 hours per week of teaching reading, whether it's at home or at school, especially in the foundation phase, and that some children would then easily read, others would struggle, but then there's certain things in place, strategies in place according to the reading strategy in order to overcome that. So that is available to all teachers. You can go online and just get your strategy. I know that they said in 2021 after COVID, they had to revise it again because it was something like a 3% drop in reading comprehension for grade 4 learners. So meaning that the kids who came out of COVID did not read effectively at home. So a massive drop in reading for then they would have been grade 1, 2, and 3. So by the time they got to grade 4, we saw a very big drop in reading comprehension. So yeah, reading strategy available for all teachers. Go and download it, have a look at it, try to implement it. It's there for all.
And there's lots of resources online. There's lots of resources. The big reading books, free to download. There's lots of resources that the department put out. So looking at the brain and just looking at what parts of the brain are involved, Leandri?
Yes, I think the big thing that people always come to me and tell me, my child's struggling to read, so there must be something wrong with their eyes. But what people don't realize is that the whole brain is actually involved in reading, and that many parts gets activated for different things. So I'm not going to go into much detail when we do our reading workshop for teachers, and we will go into all the detail from perspective of the brain. But it is just important to note that each and every aspect of the brain actually gets activated when reading takes place. And if something if there's a part of reading that a child does not understand or quite grasp yet, then it might be a certain part of the brain that we need to still develop. But yeah, as I said, we will go into that when we do our reading workshop.
Yes. Okay, have I frozen now?
Yes, you have.
So you can't hear me.
Frozen? You are frozen. Can you?
Your brain is looking at all the parts. Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
The 5 components of reading.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll come back. But basically, as long as you can hear me, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just pretend I'm sitting very still. So the 5 components of teaching reading. So these are the aspects that need to be included in a good reading lesson. You know, it's not just about sitting in a circle on the mat and flashing cards and expecting children to be able to parrot fashion learn flashcards. It's about phonological awareness, which is basically being able to manipulate sounds and knowing where sounds need to be in words. So it's the sequencing of sounds. It's not just recognition of letters, knowing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but understanding the letter names versus the letter sounds versus the letter sequences, blends, the rules that go into, you know, we teach children about magic E and or fairy E and, you know, the long A, when sounds have to be, you know, in certain parts of the word and where they are in the word in order to be able to be read correctly. So phonemic awareness is literally everything to do with rhyming, playing with sounds, playing games like I Spy with My Little Eye, being able to take away sounds, put sounds back, manipulate sounds in words. That is all phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. The word recognition, yes, sure, word recognition is important. Knowing your sight words that you can't sound out, you just have to recognize them on sight. That's important. Phonics, we know that is important. There's a strategy when it comes to teaching phonics. You have to start with certain sounds. You don't start with, I think you've got to know which sounds are important to start with. And then comprehension comes, vocabulary comes, and fluency comes. But the most important, the first two there are probably the most important, phonemic awareness and word recognition. Then it develops into comprehension, developing a child's vocabulary, and then encouraging fluency so that when they read, it's not stunted, there's flow.
Yeah.
And so those are the most important components of reading strategy. We're not going to mention much more than that. Anything to add, Rianda?
I think if we add one, if we have to, we can put number 6 there about the love of reading. But I think if you incorporate all of those 5, then you will create a love for reading. So I think if you love what you do, if you want to do it, then it's 80% done.
Yes.
So yes, I think it's very important that you love what you do for a child as well. If you have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
so
think
the best way, go ahead.
Problems stems from a lack of confidence.
Yes.
So I've seen it in my therapy that I'm doing with children. The moment they gain confidence, then all of these things fall into place.
Yeah.
If we work. Yes.
So true.
Have you guys heard about hyperlexia? Hyperlexia, not dyslexia.
No.
Hyperlexia. No, I haven't heard of that.
So hyperlexia are those children who can read, but they have no idea what they're saying, what they're reading. So they know the words, but they just literally are reading what they're seeing. There's no processing and no comprehension going in. They learn by rote, but there's no understanding about what they are reading. And it's often the children that are taught to read too early or who are taught to read incorrectly.
Or these iPad babies.
They just memorize things.
That don't have to understand or anything. They just flick through it. They just read. They just memorize. They don't understand. They just flick through it. They don't think about it. They don't comprehend. They don't follow instructions. Every other part of the reading is taken out of reading. It's just their eyes that are working for the iPad or the phone or the computer.
They don't read, there's no expression. They don't understand comprehension. It's just monotone, robotic,
Yes.
So we quickly wanted to touch on the different reading strategies as well. What we like to see is different ways of exposing children to reading. You've got shared reading, group guided reading, paired reading, word attack skills, and independent reading. So there are different ways, again, of introducing reading into a lesson. So shared reading, Leandri, do you want to chat about the shared reading versus paired reading?
Yes, so shared reading is when you've got an adult, whether it's a mom or a cousin or a teacher or whatever, and they read with the child. So that is usually an adult and a child reading together. And then paired reading is when 2 children read together, but then you pair a child who's got weaker reading skills with a child who's got very good reading skills. So you put them together and they actually learn from each other. So shared reading, again, adult or a parent, and paired reading is just a stronger reader reading with a child struggles a little bit.
Yes.
Right. And I think group guided reading is really where the teacher is sitting with a group, like that picture there at the bottom, where they have a reader, they're all following the same story, and they're all having a turn to read. The word attack skills is literally where you are teaching the lists. They're having lists of words going home that they've got to learn. It's usually sight words. And they only can read the book once they understand all the words first. That's word attack skills. And then independent reading is really the child who can now read independently. And they're sitting there, that picture sitting there, probably in a library, and they each have their own book that they've chosen and they are independently reading.
Yeah.
So some of the problems associated with reading, and again, this is a workshop all on its own, we would love to be able to come into your schools and do specific workshops on teaching reading, being able to identify problems associated with reading, how to fix those problems, how to support a child who is struggling. But this issue with reading is such an important aspect, because if kids can't read, they cannot study. And if they can't study, they can't actually progress independently. They're going to rely so much on mom to teach them the work, because they can't study it themselves. So we talk about specific reading problems or specific reading disorders, but we can also talk about dyslexia, which is a very common, not a common, but we all know, we've all heard what dyslexia is, but it's not as common as we think. Only as low as 2% of children might have a diagnosed dyslexia. The other children are just struggling with reading or have a specific reading challenge or barrier. So just to be aware of that. There could be a lot of reasons why a child struggles to learn to read. It could really just be poor instruction, not necessarily any fault of the child. Right?
Yes.
So dyslexia, gosh, we could, again, it's a workshop all on its own, but really some of the red flags, I don't know, Rianda, if you want to just mention maybe 2 or 3 of the specific red flags to look out for a teacher if they suspect a child might have dyslexia.
Dyslexia is a difficult one, and it's very commonly diagnosed, and sometimes it's wrong. Like you say, sometimes it is that, but sometimes it's not that. But the big thing for dyslexia is where that difficult learning rules for spelling or phonetic spelling. For example, they will read lick instead of like. They will leave some parts out, or they will not be able to recognize a b or a d or a p, or the vowels, or some of the other blends that they have to make. And one day they will remember it and recognize it, and the next day they won't. Today they will be able to tell you what they read, and tomorrow they won't be able to write their name. So it's very difficult, but those are the very, very big red flags for dyslexia. It's also a child that they cannot recognize the words, they cannot recognize the sounds, they cannot recognize the blends that they have to make, and they cannot put them together to build the new word. So they have a very big problem. So sometimes they can read the sight words, they read the book, it, all of the words that are very easy that they're reading every day, but it's words that they see every day. So they have a very, very good memory of it, and they recognize the pattern, the shape of the word, but they're not reading it. So the minute you put it in another text, or you put it in a word sum format, or you put it in a different story, they get stuck. And then they find, but this child yesterday, he read this book to me, but then the minute you put it in something else, now all of a sudden they can't. So those are very big red flags. And dyslexia is difficult to diagnose, because technically you can't diagnose until end of grade 3, third term, due to the fact that by then all the sounds and the phonics and everything would have been taught. But there are examples now of and ideas of how you can identify dyslexia, even as early up to 5 years old in grade R. So that is wonderful, because the earlier you start, the better for the child. So yeah, I can talk about this for hours.
Yes. And like I said, that's another workshop all on its own. Teachers, there are some references. Please go and have a look at these sites, including educationservices.co.za. But we learned everything over the years. We have had to read, and we have had to learn, and we've had to attend courses, and we've had to go to conferences, and we've had to attend webinars, because you never stop learning about this issue. So we've put some references down there. These are the references that we trust. These are the references that we go to when we want to know more. So please take a screenshot of those and go and do some research as well. But really, at the end of the day, we don't know it all. We know a lot, but we don't know it all. And if you are needing any help with reading, if you are needing any advice with reading, how to teach reading, where to find resources, how to assess and screen for reading barriers, we're going to send that little bonus to you tomorrow. It's a reading sort of screening that you can do to almost hone in on what the specific issue might be. Maybe it's a phonetic thing. Maybe it's a word recognition thing. Maybe it's a comprehension thing. And it will just help you to sort of almost be able to classify what is causing the barrier for this child's reading ability. So that's going to pop into your inbox within the next day or two, is that bonus. And then we're going to do a lucky draw. I'm going to take my screen off here now. I'm going to stop sharing. I have got a lucky draw of all the names of the teachers that signed up for our webinar. So although you can't see me, I'm not looking at the names. I'm pulling a name out the hat. And this lucky teacher will be, she will win a consultation with us, or a visit to your school, or some or other, whatever you need. And the winner is Nolene. So Nolene, I'm going to quickly have a look at my list. It's Nolene Tennyson. Nolene Tennyson, you are the lucky winner. So we will be contacting you in the next day or two and come and hopefully give you some help and support at your school where you are.
Congratulations. Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks, ladies, for this wonderful session. Please, guys, remember, at the end of every month, there is a webinar. So at the end of April, again, hopefully, if it's not on a public holiday, we'll do another webinar. I think April, we are doing autism. So if I'm not mistaken, we will do something on autism in April. But keep a lookout. Follow our Facebook page, Education Services. You know where to find us, and we are always available. So thanks, ladies, for joining me tonight. It was such fun.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. It's nice to see you.
Yes. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye. Bye.